Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Okay. Hi guys, how are you? Good? Great. Hope you're doing well. Preemptive like, History Matters, good channel. Why didn't Vichy, I think Vichy France, right? Join the Axis. So what I know about Vichy France is it was just a puppet. Like I would imagine when Germany conquered France in World War II, it'd be easy. It'd be easier to control the parts that are important to your defense, and then leave another part to kind of have some sort of legitimize. Just appoint someone that is pro Germany to govern that part of France, so you just don't have to deal with it. I guess. I don't know that much, obviously. So let's go. Sure.
After France was defeated in the Second World War, the armistice dictated that the north of it was to be garrisoned by German soldiers, whereas the south was allowed to remain unoccupied. This part of France is known as Vichy France due to it being run from said town, and it was a German puppet state in all but name. But despite its leaders acting run from said town, and it was a German puppet state in all but name. But despite its leaders acting in German interests, Vichy France never joined the Axis to fight the Allies in a more formal sense. So why not? Why didn't Vichy France join the Axis? So as of the fall of France, President Albert Lebrun gave absolute power to his recently appointed Prime Minister Philippe Pétain, and this was to allow him to write a new constitution.
Oh my god, I gotta shut it.
The Axis. So as of the fall of France, President Albert Lebrun gave absolute power to his recently appointed Prime Minister Philippe Pétain, and this was to allow him to write a new constitution. Pétain dissolved the French Parliament and made himself head of state. Legally, Pétain's government had control over all of France. In reality, though, its authority stretched only throughout the non-occupied zone. His government had to relocate from Paris to Vichy here because it had the best postal and telephone facilities outside of the capital. As Pétain was attempting to write a new French constitution after its defeat, Britain was worried. France had withdrawn from both the war and the Allies and now sat as a neutral, if occupied, state.
Guys, there are a bunch of really funny things. It goes really fast that it's fun to pause and read, but I've just paused so much it would mess up the video so much. So I'm gonna go back and read the more funny little things. Definitely the newspaper, but I learned that I didn't know why it was called Vichy France. I never really questioned it, but it's the name of the city that became the new de facto capital. Okay.
Of the capital. As Pétain was attempting to write a new French constitution after its defeat, Britain was worried. France had withdrawn from both the war and the Allies and now sat as a neutral, if occupied, state. The British were concerned that the French fleet would fall into German hands, and so they demanded custody of it for themselves. The French said no, and so the British calmly dropped the subject. And some bombs on the French fleet.
Yes, I heard about that.
The French responded by bombing Gibraltar, and it would seem then that the two were at war. But France never made any declarations, nor did it try to join the Axis. And there were several important reasons why. The first was that Pétain didn't believe that France was ready to join the conflict on either side. The second reason was that Pétain enjoyed international recognition as the legitimate ruler of France, with some exceptions, and joining the war would see this revoked by some. It also meant that the French legitimate ruler of France, with some exceptions, and joining the war would see this revoked by some. It also meant that the French people in both France itself and the colonies wouldn't have to pick a side, since many weren't too happy about the German occupation, but there was also a very strong anti-British sentiment amongst the French people, and Pétain didn't want to test which of these was stronger. The third reason was that the Axis didn't really want France to join. The German government didn't feel that France would fare too well in an all-out war, and importantly, they didn't want to risk having to divert troops to help in Africa. It wasn't just
Germany stuck with complete noobs both times.
An all-out war, and importantly, they didn't want to risk having to divert troops to help in Africa. It wasn't just Germany, though, that didn't want France on the team. The Italian government had been eyeing up French territory for a long time, and even a rump France on side could have prevented Italy from realising its ambitions. And across the world, Japan wasn't a fan of France either. Its ideological justification for its conflict with the West was freeing Asia from European colonialism, and France held these lands that Japan wanted. That said,
remove Asia from European colonization and then colonize Asia yourself is what you're
Asia
saying.
From European colonialism, and France held these lands that Japan wanted. That said, the debate didn't last too long, since in late 1942, fearing that Vichy France would either join the Allies or fall to them, the German and Italian militaries invaded and put an end to its existence, thereby ending the short and technically neutral existence of Vichy France. I hope you enjoyed this episode, with a special thanks to
I learned a lot, actually. This was a really good video. History. I just assumed. I just assumed it was a complete. It was like Germany didn't felt like maybe it would give some legitimization, like, oh look, France is on our side too. Let's make it look like that by making Vichy France, even though it's really a puppet state of Germany. I mean, the fact that actually they actually had choices to be either. By the way, France so stubborn. It's not bad. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's almost it's admirable, to be honest. Even like after the war, even though just how like, no, we're France, we're not listening to you sort of mentality. We're French. But very proud nation, obviously, very a great. But the fact that it was actually an area that the Axis would have to invade to quell, I thought that was solved with Paris, and so that's really surprising. And then the fact that they still, even when invaded, were like, "Well, we hate Britain too." The French, man, jeez. I love you guys. All right. All right, and we're going back to the I always read these. Thanks guys for watching. If you don't want to wait, that's fine. I just love doing this. The London News, page 1, June 23rd, 1940. France surrenders. No one in the future will ever bring this up. Albert Lebrun. And they seem to get progressively more ridiculous. Let's see if it continues like that. War in Britain as it now stands alone. Britain now faces the difficult task of defeating the fascist powers of Europe entirely on its own, with zero help from its colonies. Just ignore what they may say in the future. How exactly this will be done remains to be seen. We predict something to do with Italy getting it wrong. When asked for comment on France surrendering, the Lord Beaverbrook responded, "Obviously, fighting the war on our own from now on will be tricky, but I speak for all people, literally all of them, when I say France losing will never not be funny." I mean, it's a shame that they get like a surrendered look at every country. America has loads of them too, has the stereotypical make fun of line, but France, just because it's kind of a shame, because prior to World War II, they had you had Napoleon III and you had the Franco-Prussian War, but they're such this richly military successful country, and now they just have the white flag. Well, France losing will never not be funny. The question now is whether Germany will mount an invasion of Britain or decide to waste a year faffing around before invading the USSR. That was like the phony war, right? Like after France and Poland were conquered, and Germany, that, what was it, the Ribbentrop, or what was it? The pact they made with the USSR they both didn't like each other, but to take over Poland and then be chill for now. And then, so that's like the phony war, like the year in between. Okay, Romania nervous about the USSR on its border. The Romanian government has given the USSR a diplomatic note asking why it keeps looking around Bessarabia and Bukovina. In response, the Soviet government said that it remembered when Romania stole it from the Russian Empire, and that this wrong was going to be righted. The Soviet people are right to want the return of these territories, which when we get back will be renamed to honor our leader, Comrade Stalin. We look forward to the formal incorporation of Repressarabia back into the USSR. I couldn't think of a funny pun for Bukovina. Sorry. More on page 19. Italy, just happy to be invited. Italy is to host a day of national celebration after what the Duce called the abject humiliation of our decadent rivals by ourselves, mostly single-handedly. This comes after reports that the Italian invasion of France a day or so ago was met with fierce resistance and a lot of dead Italians. The technical military reason, I shouldn't have laughed there. The technical military reason why this happened, is mountains are hard to cross, Hannibal, and much harder when they're littered with French bunkers filled with machine guns. As such, when you just blindly walk towards them, it goes badly. Mussolini celebrated by visiting Milan, where he stated how much he liked the Piazzale Loreto, and how he hoped to hang around there one day. Is that a joke on how he was killed and hanging around? Jesus Christ. All right, and what they say right here. Constitution ideas. We, the French, having but virtue of the glories of France's ancestors, whereas France is founded upon principles that recognize Philippe Pétain by the grace of God, chief of the French state, in the name of God, one in the Holy Trinity. Philippe retained by the yeah. Great video, love it, and I learned a lot about Vichy France in that short time. Like to see your comments. If you'd like to join the Discord, then click on the link down right below the original link to this video, and we'd love to have you. See you guys next time. Bye.